And it says, and Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left hand. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked into the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians. And he took off their chariot wheels, and they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand over the sea, and the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it. And the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and that Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. This is probably one of the most recognized and greatest miracles that God has ever done. For most, it was most important because he saved Israel. Without Israel, that was God's chosen people. He saved them all with one miracle. And he had a plan. It wasn't a spur of the moment thing for God. God knew all, and he's seen all, and just like he saw all with them, he sees all with us. When he told Moses, when they fled from last week's lesson, what was it? Be prepared.
Yep.
Get ready. Make yourself worthy and keep my promise. What started the Passover. That's what we have to be. We have to be ready. We have to keep ourselves ready and put ourselves in a place where God can lead us. Just as in our Christian life, just as the Israel as a body. So now the Passover has went, and Pharaoh let the Egyptians go. Well, he told Moses the direction he wanted him to go. He told him, don't go the direction that would lead them out, the normal path. I mean, there's towns, and if you read the Bible, it tells you exactly what would normally be the route to leave Egypt. He told him, don't go that way. He said, because I want you to go this way, and I'll deliver you. He said, because if you go the other way, as soon as the first signs of war, he said that Israel would turn around and go back to Egypt. God knew it. He knew it. He knows all. He knew the first sign of adversary, that's what they would have done. He said, I want you to go to the Red Sea. So Moses led him to the Red Sea. And this is where we pick up the story in today's lesson. It says that Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night. Can you imagine the wind being so great that it would part that water?
Come on, buddy.
Form two walls on each side of them, and dry the land. They didn't walk in mud. There wasn't a wet spot on it.
And you would think, Toby, you could take, just go out there and say, dam the creek up. Well, the load would run off, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But that water stayed there. It never moved.
It never moved. A wall on each side.
Yeah.
through modern technology now, you can have an air gun and you could crank up the PSI on something and you could put it through water and you can see water part and you can see wall on the inside if you had it strong enough. But it couldn't be strong enough to the point where a man, well, we're not talking a small herd of people, or we're talking a million people.
Yeah.
We're talking women, children, livestock, cattle, all the gold that they could carry from Egypt. They were loaded down. They were slow traveling too, and Pharaoh saw that, and God wanted Pharaoh to see that. He said he hardened his heart. As a Pharaoh, you're a leader. You got a military mind. You've been in war, and here you look at these group of people, a million people, loaded down. They were your slaves. They worked for you. Now they've got your gold, got cattle, and they're heading out. The economic of the Egyptians was going to be severe. They've lost their workforce, half their gold, and future workforce, and there will be no work done in the building of the Egyptian city. And he said, here they are, traveling to the Red Sea, in the wilderness, with cattle, no weapons. They're setting up. There's nowhere for them to go. So he gets, it starts turning in his heart. He's already mad. They lost their firstborn. That's what sent him over to think, finally, we're done. We have to let them go. But now, this little bit of time left, he said, we let them go, and they go to the Red Sea.
Dummies.
They're sitting there waiting for him. He said, this is an easy picking.
Yeah.
He said, get all these, he ordered all these chariots, the best. There was I think 600 chariots, and all these high top officers manning every one of them.
Can't you imagine, Toby? Pharaoh said, talking to his men there, and he said, I'll tell you what, that's got to be the dumbest individual I ever seen in my life. At Moses. Now, he would take them down. That's stupidity. No, was he not any smarter than that? No. And that's what the enemy is saying today. What stupidity? There's no way. Well, Jesus said he make a way where there seemeth to be no way. And that's what he did back then. He was proving to himself, to those people, that it had to be. You know what would have happened? And we don't realize it sometimes myself. They would have, if they would have got out another way, they'd have said, look what we done.
That's right.
But it was done for the glory of God.
That's it.
There was no way around. And Pharaoh was amazed. Man, I'll tell you what, if he missed heaven, it's his own fault. That's all I can say.
I think about how much faith it took for them people to walk through them big walls of water. It took great faith even to do that.
Sure.
It took faith. They knew what was behind them. I'd rather walk through that 2 walls of water that God separated for me than to deal with this army that's coming up behind me. They were scared. But it took faith on Moses. Because Moses, he told Moses, he said, when you go, when I send you, I'm sending you. And you got it, he said, and I'll get you through that. Moses didn't have a clear way of how God was going to separate the waters.
Toby, you can stop right there, buddy, and give an invitation. Those people, unless they were sick and tired of come on, church, unless they were sick and tired of the life that they was getting ready to leave, they wouldn't have had the faith to press toward that. Listen, people will not be saved until they're tired of the life that the devil's been given. Till they're fed up with the bondage. Listen, these people, Toby, I don't mean to take up your time, but they were under bondage just like people are. And that's why, Toby, that story is given there. People was under bondage. just like sinners are today. And folks, I don't want folks to think that we're singling them out because they're unsaved. The reason that we dwell on invitation so much, we're trying to rescue people out of bondage and bring them into deliverance. It's not that we're trying to make them look less or they're not as good as us, but we're trying to get them out of the fire and get them into the Canaan land.
It's out of love. Because we all once were, a sinner was. We were all sinners. And we knew it when we took that first step, God had the rest. And when we experienced that peace of mind, God coming into our hearts, and you think about the things that prohibited us, or the devil put in our mind to say not to go, and it was mountains were breadcrumbs now. And you're thinking, he had me fooled. He had me put down to where I think I couldn't overcome. And then when you realize that, you're thinking, I was a fool for even pondering on that. And as Christians, like he said, you know, we give so many invitations. We know what the devil puts up in front of you. We've all experienced it. And it just takes that first step. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked into the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians. When they was throughout God leading them through the wilderness, that's how he led them. He says here that he even looked through the pillar at them. He's all-knowing, so he didn't have to do that, but he did. When they started to go into this water, if you read before this lesson, he moved the pillar in front of them to the behind. He's telling them, I got your back. Don't worry. You press on to get to the other side. I'm on the back. On the front end, he gave light. On the back side, it was darkness. The Egyptians didn't really know what they were heading to. They knew that they were going to the Red Sea and they were trapped. But until they got there, they saw darkness. But they knew where they was going. And all this time, you know, it takes, you know, you've got over 1 million people crossing this Red Sea. It takes time. They've been doing this all night, traveling. Here we find ourselves in the morning time, getting almost daylight. And it took off and troubled. Okay, he troubled the host of the Egyptians. Now, he could have let them go in, but he said, no, I got something else. And he took off the chariot wheels. The wheels fell off. And they dragged them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. God got his point across. You're not fighting these people. These are mine, but you're dealing with me. I am their God, the high God, and what I did to you in Egypt, I'm taking it with them. So don't think that once they've left, I'm not with them. He is with us. No matter what we go through in our life, when we're running, and it seems like all hope is lost, he's there. He's got our back. And it may not be what we think. But the opposition could be, you're still scared. I know when they was crossing this, they probably still was looking back because they thinking, you know, they're crossing too. They know that they're in the Red Sea as well. And they're thinking, we got to get through here as fast as we can because they're coming. So what did God do? Made their wheels fall off. So now, the speed of their getting through there to catch up with the slow-moving people has drastically done. Now they're on foot. But now they're scared. Now instead of them being in their chariots screaming through on dry land now, some people say, well, it was probably the mud got into the wheels and made it fall off. God said it was on dry land.
Mm-hmm.
So here you find themselves, they're on foot now. No reason why these chariots. Before there, God said it was their finest Egyptian chariots that they had. These wasn't just run down chariots. These were the best.
Yeah.
He was making a point.
Supercharged.
I'd say they was dressed up in their pageantry and their weapons. They was going to make a. They was going to make a.
They're going to make headlines with it.
Yeah. And if you wasn't dead, you was going to be coming back, and you was going to work until you were dead. If God said no, the wheels fell off. Then they realized, whoa, we're facing their God. So they wanted to get out. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thine hand over the sea, and the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returneth to its strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of the Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. With one swipe, God wiped out probably 90% of Egypt's army. Top dogs. He said they sent their best. Now, when we have our opposition, God can work just like this. When we're faced and we don't see no light out, and then all of a sudden He puts it in our lap. We've had testimony that it happened here. And if you think back in your life when you're going through something and it looks like you're running through two walls of water and the enemy's behind you, and God shows up. He's faithful and just, and He'll never leave you or nor forsake you. Now, this was a great miracle. But we all know it didn't take long for the people's mind to wander. Big miracles does not bring big revivals. Anytime we saw God separate the water at Jordan, and two other times with Elijah, and each one of those miracles, there wasn't a big revival. Revival is through us. Revival is through the grace of God. Revival comes through love and nurturing and being a witness for our God. Because people tend to forget the big things. We think about each individual one of us. We come in here, we get beat up, and we live a defeated life, a defeated spiritual life. But think back all the times God pulled you through. But see, we forget those miracles that God forgives us, or that grants us. We take them for granted. Think about when you had, when He gave you money when you didn't have it. When He's healed your sick. And there was no explanation.
Come on, buddy.
When He gave you a job when you didn't think there was a job to get. Think about all the lifetime, all the add up. See, we tend to forget. And that's why we live a defeated spiritual life. Because we don't keep it in our remembrance. We don't keep saying what He's done for us. What He's done here. We read this story. This is the story. It's thousands and thousands of years. And it hasn't lost its savor. It's still got salt. You can still taste it. Where's our salt in our life? We think about what has God done for us. Have we told anybody about our spiritual miracles that God has done for us? Sometimes it's a miracle for us to even get out of bed. For some of us, it is. We got to give him glory. Because he demands it and he deserves every bit of it. He's the same God with the people of Israel as he is today. He's long-suffering. He's loving. But one day, it's going to be cut off. And he's going to be the God of wrath. And he's going to judge us accordingly. But right now, the door is open. Right now, he wants us. Right now, he wants to help you. Right now, he wants to give you your heart and say, don't fight it yourself. Give it to me. I'll make the wheels fall off. I'll close up those waters that's behind you. Whatever opposition you think you've got, no matter how big it is, it's nothing for him. When you're at your darkest, that's when he's going to be the brightest. But we've got to give it to him. Because he ain't going to take it. He's not going to come where he's not welcome. Boy, you let him have it. And you don't have to do nothing.
That's what he said earlier. He told Moses said, stand still and watch the salvation of the Lord.
That's right.
I'll show you today, for the Egyptians you see today, you'll never see them ever again. Nevermore. For the Lord will fight, and you shall hold your peace.
Yep. Because he wanted credit. And he can do that with us.
Amen.
Just because we read it, we read this Bible as stories, and we don't take it for what it is. This is power. This is witnesses. And we think, well, that was back then, buddy. That God is still the God today.
Yeah.
Amen.
He can make our vehicles' tires fall off just the same as he did those chariots, if he wants to. If he needs to make a point. But half the time he's blessing us so much that we don't see the trouble because he keeps it from us. We got to get strong. And this is where we can find it. We got to let our roots run deep. And he'll be there. Like I said before, it's all about him. He's done it with Israel, and he'll do it with us, no matter what is in our personal life.
Bless you, Toby.